Hello and welcome to this live workshop. It's called 17 Social Media Actions to Capture the Pandemic Traveller. It's proudly supported by Finn Partners, the global marketing and communications agency, and MintTwist, the digital marketing agency. If you are watching this on replay, please do share your comments and questions wherever you're watching. We will definitely come back to them. We'll be very happy for any feedback. However, this workshop is a live workshop. It's live streaming to a special event on LinkedIn and a couple of other locations. So if you are watching live, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please say hello, let us know where you're watching from. But more importantly, as we go through the content, if you've got any comments yourselves, any tips you would like to share or any questions, please post them in the comments. And when we've been through the 17 tips from the panel, we'll come back to your specific questions and we'll address them directly at that point. So today's event, 17 social media actions to capture the pandemic traveller. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by 3 industry experts and I'll let them introduce themselves just now. Let's come first to Jenny.
Hello, good morning from the US. I'm based in Chicago. I am the global digital strategy and influencer lead for Finn. It's so nice to meet everyone. Amy.
Thank you, Jenny. Let's come to Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Skelding. I'm senior partner in the Finn Partners travel practice. So we look after PR and social media and influencer outreach for travel and tourism brands.
Thank you, Amy. Let's come to Natalie now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. I'm the strategic account director at MintTwist. So essentially what I do is I work very closely with the implementation teams at MintTwist to basically create bespoke digital marketing trust strategies for our clients.
So thank you very much to all of our panel. I'm going to share my screen now. And so the rules of the game here are we've got 17 social media tips that the panel will be sharing, and there's about 1 minute for each tip. So in about 17 minutes time, we'll get to the Q&A section. Okay, so let's hand over to Jenny now for tip number 1.
Tip number 1, listen. It's the best way to learn. Use tools like Infigi or follow hashtags to get a feel for what consumers want, and then turn that and use your own brand knowledge to turn what you hear into something really meaningful.
Number 2 is be yourself. The most important thing about social media is to show a brand personality that's both authentic and engaging. Basically, don't sound like a brand, as the social media community is based on personal interactions.
Cool. So tip number 3 is welcome window shoppers. People definitely don't join social media to be sold to. So don't go in for the hard sell, and definitely don't expect to sell as part of your KPIs. Your followers are your potential brand ambassadors, and they will share your content if they love it enough. So focus on the content and on your audience, and yeah, hopefully it'll go great.
Quality content is king. This is tip number 4. I know it sounds really obvious, but your community needs to love, and I mean love, what you're sharing. And it needs to appeal to their motivations and their interests. If it's worth spending more time to really look at your visuals, look at your captions, look at your videos, and make sure they really deliver that value to your audience.
Number 5, third-party endorsement goes a long way. You can tell a PR's behind this one. A very effective way to build trust in your brand is to share your media coverage on your channels, your raving posts from fellow travelers who create and share relevant content online, or any influencer content tagging your brand. It adds gravitas and it demonstrates your influence beyond that particular channel.
Tip number 6 is be nimble. The news agenda, especially nowadays, gallops at an incredible speed. And brands that can adapt their social comms to be part of the story, they will get the most traction. So as you're creating your content calendars, definitely reserve a space for opportunistic and timely posts so that you can truly connect with the cultural conversation.
Number 7, Hashtags are your friends. Hungry for news and entertainment and really to be part of a movement, people are using hashtags like never before. Make sure that you use them to their fullest and follow best practices across every single social channel to make sure you're using the optimal number of hashtags with your content.
Number 8, play with video. Video, and everyone keeps saying it because it's true, video is becoming even more important. And with Reels now taking center stage on Instagram, it's expected from consumers, and use subtitles.
Tip number 9 is be part of the community. That means engage, comment, like, respond. Take issues offline if you need to, and make your followers feel heard. This is especially during this pandemic time, as a lot of people are relying on social media to feel part of a community.
Plan ahead. You can use tools like Year Ahead or Sprout Social to see what dates are coming up and to plan your content in advance so that you aren't caught out and finding out way too late that today is National World Tourism Day and you've got to get messages out while the world is there watching and you've got nothing prepped.
Number 11, be memorable. We could have done 10 or 20 or even 21 tips, and that would have made sense. But we did 17 to make us stand out, to intrigue the brain and ask, why 17? And ultimately, we'll be memorable as we haven't given you the answer.
Number 12 is be COVID conscious. So this may seem obvious, but definitely don't show pictures of crowds of people in your content. Pick influencers who are behaving sensitively to the news agenda and not flaunting guidelines. And have transparent content, so show real pictures. And if you have to show pictures of a pre-COVID time or that are obviously from a pre-COVID time, make sure you note that in your description and make a disclaimer.
13 is build trust. Again, coming from the world of PR. In a world of fake news and confusing and sometimes very contradictory guidelines, people are really desperate to find factual content, and they look to social to get that information. So make sure that what you're sharing is relevant, that you discard any outdated regulatory updates, and that you have prepared responses so your followers know that they're feeling heard when they're asking questions and that they're also informed by your responses.
14, experimentation is key. Testing your messaging and the social channels is really key due to the changing online behaviors and unpredictable results during COVID times. Testing allows you to use data to understand what works and, really importantly, what doesn't.
Cool. Tip number 15 is analyze and be self-critical. So definitely check your analytics and engagement levels, especially if you're going to be testing a lot. If something's not working, then change it. If something is working, then obviously do more of that. And also crowdsource content ideas with your community to deliver a more memorable experience and to really connect with your audience.
Tip number 16 is put your audience first. Many brands, they think of their own objectives first when they're creating social content, but really in this current landscape, it's ever important that you think of your audience first when deciding on which content you wish to share. Focus on adding that value to your target audience to ensure that the messages that you're sharing resonate and it provides them with a useful takeaway. If it's an entertainment or informational, whether it's an insight, give them something to walk away from your content.
And then lucky number 17, focus more on remarketing. Since your target audience is less likely, in travel, they're less likely to make a purchase or convert at the first touch point. Remarketing is very important as it allows your brand to stay top of mind and recapture users who have previously engaged with your content, but not necessarily converted. That rounds off our 17 tips. And now we're ready for Elliot to take some questions.
Well, thank you so much to our panel. That was really good. So let's dive straight into the questions. And if you are watching, you do have a question, please post it wherever you're watching, and we'll make sure we bring it up. We've got a few here already. So first of all, we've got Greg from SAP who asks, how should firms deal with customer complaints, or I guess negative feedback in general on social media?
Sure, I'll take that. So the first thing that you always want to do when there's anything negative on social is you respond right away. You want to make sure that your community knows that you're there, that the community is being managed, and that you're looking, to see questions or queries, and you're taking concerns really seriously. So the first thing that you always do is that you respond visibly so that other community members who might have the same question or the same concern can see not only that there's a community manager present, but that we're looking for questions, we're answering them, and we provide an answer publicly so that other community members can see the answer to that person's question. And then if the issues continue, and if there's need for additional conversation, we take that conversation offline. So we usually respond publicly in the feed, and then we take that to either a direct message where it's one-on-one, or even sometimes offline completely onto the phone, so that we can really get to the heart of the issue and solve that concern for the community member.
Thanks, Jenny. I think I completely agree with the answer there. Nothing more to add. So the next question we've got is Emily from Network Rail, who asks, how should firms or people using social media, to motivate consumers to make a purchase, how should they be altering their messaging with respect to this situation that we find ourselves in?
That's a Jenny one.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, so messages right now. So we know that, as we've seen since February, March, consumer behavior and attention is online more than ever before. Not only are people not going out and spending time outdoors or doing activities, social activities, but they're using social media, they're using digital to connect and create that sense of community with friends and families where they once were, engaging offline. Now it's all happening online due to the cultural climate. So your messages become extremely important. Any way that you can dive into the cultural climate, to what could be happening from a personal perspective for your community members. Change your messages to adapt to the changes week by week by week, to the seasons. If back to school's happening, if the holidays are approaching, entertainment might be, typically happening, but people are feeling sad that they're not with their families. Take all of those cultural considerations into your mind and the heart as you're writing your content, so that you can tweak your messages and how you're communicating to be really empathetic and to take their current situation into consideration as you're putting that branded content out there. As we mentioned in our tips, go for the softer sell. Hard sell right now can be a little jarring. So really connecting with that emotional and the aspirational, what we'll be doing after all this is said and done, seems to be a really good way to kind of tap into that heart, that emotional space to kind of, connect with consumers in a really meaningful way.
Look, some great points there. And what do you think specifically about mentioning the pandemic? Is that in PR terms, Amy, is that a no-no?
I think, a year ago, we would never have put a photo anywhere with someone with a mask on. And now we're actively encouraging clients to be really transparent about what's your arrival procedure. Let's see people with masks on by a pool. Does it work like that in a hotel? How do they arrive at the airport? We've had great traction on some. So when, for example, when we reopened Malta, we had a journalist who then provided content for social, and he literally documented every single step of the way, be it getting on the plane, being on the flight, arriving at the airport, and he got great engagement because people want to know. You want to peek behind the curtain. And the analogy I made is that years ago, or not even years ago, 10 months ago, you would check out your hotel and you would want to know, are you car park facing or are you beach facing? And now you check out your hotel and you want to know, Do I wear a mask on the beach? Do I have to wash my hands here? Well, you want to know all the nitty gritty. It's not sexy, but it actually is what people are searching for on social media.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to the transparency point. Yeah. Okay. So we've got another question here from Damien from Travel Tech. How do marketers measure ROI from social media?
Yeah, I can respond that. So I think essentially with ROI, it goes back to understanding what your KPIs are and setting the KPIs with every sort of strategy that you're doing. So from an organic social media point of view, I think it's kind of in line with what we just mentioned and what Jenny mentioned, is that we need to be realistic with what we want to achieve from our KPIs. And I think a hard sell is not going to be one of them from a social or organic social media point of view. It's all about sort of engagement and really slowly building that reputation of your brand so that when people are ready, they can then make the purchase. So from an organic social media point of view, you can measure ROI, but in slightly different ways. So just measuring the KPIs essentially. And then ROI is definitely more relevant from a paid advertising point of view because we have a specific spend and we are sort of directly tracking certain KPIs, and that could be a sale. But I think in this case, I think the most relevant during this pandemic period is to take into consideration just your remarketing activity. As Amy mentioned in the tips, remarketing is super important because we never know when people are going to be ready to make a purchase, especially when it comes to the travel industry. So having a remarketing campaign means that we're recapturing people, serving them multiple touch points so that whenever they are ready, we're there. And that will have a smaller budget. And then that is how we can measure ROI, by just looking at that remarketing campaign.
Excellent, thank you, Natalie. So there's another question here from Ben. Is have you noticed any patterns of changing behaviour on social media, since the pandemic or during the pandemic?
Yeah, I can take that. I talked about it just a little bit right before, just about how consumer attention is online more than ever before. Some of the other behaviors that we're seeing are, people are planning ahead. People are planning kind of more than ever before, where right now, things are changing so quickly. The guidelines, the limitations are changing. So people are scared to make plans. But for the long term, when this is all done, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. Those are the type of plans that people are actually starting to think of for travel, revisiting the places they love the most. So that's why, as you're thinking of your content strategy, doing those throwback posts, showing content that is the here and now, staying top of mind and relevant is so important, because people crave that sense of normalcy that we once had not that long ago, and they're craving it for it to return. So they're thinking of the places they love the most and the destinations that they can't wait to visit. So think about it in that respect, and really, dive in, like I said before, into those different behaviors and the consumer mindset to take advantage of those different behaviors that we're seeing online.
And just sorry to add as well, these are all really, really good points, but also because obviously behaviors and the patterns and behaviors that we've seen this year versus the previous years have definitely changed. I just want to underline here the importance of testing, which is something we've mentioned before, because we cannot predict anything anymore, and we can't almost assume or foresee how people are going to react to a specific post, or how they're going to what the performance is going to be like. It's really important to test a lot, to test different types of content, to test different types of channels, and then really analyze that data to see what works and what doesn't. And yeah, that way we can really understand the ever-changing patterns.
Thanks very much, both. Maris is very happy with your advice there. She says thank you to Jenny. James is watching from Tucson. Is that Tucson, Arizona? I'm not sure. Hello, James. And so we've got another question. There's one more question in here, which is, what does good engagement on social media look like?
Sure. Amy, take it away.
So we can be broad brush. We use Tagger. So we like to really drill down and have a little look. Basically, I spent hours looking at data on Tagger, and so does Jenny, just being a complete nerd. Being fairly broad brush, we say 2% on Instagram, but it, you know, there are caveats either side. And then sorry, there's a small child shouting in the other room. I'm very sorry. Obviously, just I'm trying to talk. And then on Twitter, it's in the 0.0%. So is it 0.4 bar 4? 2?
So Twitter, depending on the different industries, is about 0.4.
Yeah.
0.3% is really good engagement. And on Facebook, depending on industry, again, it's about 0.11%.
Yeah.
Is really good engagement on Facebook. You know, so if you see any engagement that's in a 1% on Twitter or Facebook, throw a party, because that's excellent engagement. Whereas, you know, just as Amy said, on Instagram, it's, you know, 2 and up. But again, like Amy said, you know, as we're looking at content, we look at a bunch of different factors, you know, for engagement rate, you know, active consumers within a group, within an audience base, you know, how many active consumers are they? And then how many are actually, you know, engaging? So those are really good, you know, measures to see how active and enthused your audiences are on social.
So don't be scared by tiny numbers, because they're good.
By tiny numbers. Exactly.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, from a digital agency perspective, we see also a variation between you know, brands and individuals. So it goes back to that, be yourself. If you can bring a personality to represent your brands, typically the engagement levels would be a little bit higher than the purely branded content. Look, some great points there. So if there are no more questions, I wanted to finish up by talking about a poll. So we ran a poll on LinkedIn a bit earlier today, and it said, what will the travel and tourism industry look like in this time next year? So 1 year from now. And I'll give you the sort of results from that poll so far. It's pretty amazing. It's 85% of respondents are saying that the travel and tourism industry will look different. So it's about 60% who said it would look somewhat different. 25% are saying it will look completely different, and only just over 15% are saying it will be back to normal. So the general consensus is things are going to change. I wonder if we could get the views of the panel. Let's come to you, Jenny, first. What do you think?
How is travel industry going to change next year? Well, I mean, there's so many things depending, right? You know, that are going to happen this year with the rollout of hopefully vaccines that will get our world back. I think, you know, I think that the consumer mindset, you know, as a result of the pandemic, I think people are going to be making very specific and highly nuanced choices pretty much about everything moving forward, whether it's the vacations they want to take, the destinations they want to visit, or, you know, their next vehicle or their next washing machine that they're ready to buy. I think that, you know, what this has taught is that things can change very, very quickly. So to take really special care when you're selecting those moments, you know, the experiences or the things that will be with you for a long time. So I think, you know, I think that people are going to be looking to revisit the places they miss the most and really put places on the map that they've been dying to go, so that they can take advantage of going and crossing that item off their bucket list, just in case this ever happens again. You know, a lot of people have never experienced anything like this. The extroverted wanderlust crowd out there, myself included, has had a really hard year, you know, not socializing, not moving, not engaging and connecting and being loud in real life. We're boxed in by this little screen. So I think, you know, those people are going to want to get out and they're going to want to go do stuff, and quickly. So I think, you know, the next year, as the changes happen and as people start to, you know, revisit and turn to what they need the most to fill themselves back up after this year, which was pretty draining. I think those are some decisions and some considerations that people are going to look at.
So Jenny, if I had to push you for an answer, is it completely different or is it somewhat different?
I think it's somewhat different. I think that people will always want their favorite things and their favorite places and the things that make them super happy. And I think that people are going to be craving happiness and pleasure and joy and, you know, returning to those places that made them so happy before this year, outside of their homes. Everyone's been happy inside their homes. So I would say somewhat. I think, you know, it's going to be different a little bit, but I think that, you know, the kind of heart of it will still be there and strong.
Great, thank you. Amy, what are your thoughts?
It's a somewhat different, because I'm with Jenny on this one. I'm part of the EasyJet generation where the world was at our fingertips. You could go $14.99, you could go anywhere. And I think what's being told you now can't go anywhere has made everyone realize that travel is a privilege and not a right. And therefore, as time has gone on, it makes you think, okay, if I'm doing this bucket list, I'm going to travel with purpose. So where do I actually really want to go, as opposed to it was $14.99 to go to, and you get to a destination and you're like, where am I again? What's the euro? You know, all that kind of stuff. So I think you'll travel with more purpose, and hopefully that then will, and you know, all the trends saying it translates into sustainability, not just from a community base, but also from an environmental base. So we'll start to think a bit more about the world around us. But I think, you know, germophobia is real, it exists. There are a lot of people, you know, there are a lot of people that don't want to travel because there's fear. And as testing comes more into the market, and you know, we've seen in the UK, you know, people are being tested, they've been given the option to test to release after that comes in on the 15th, you know, that you can not quarantine if it's somewhere that's not on a corridor list. So people will start to choose where to go based on tests, because tests are so expensive. You know, they're between 120 and 300 pounds. And if you're a family, you ain't going somewhere that's 300 pounds a test, particularly if you're doing on return as well. So when the LAMP, you know, I only know so much about testing as we work with Frank, which is the LAMP test. And they do a 30-minute test and you get your results to your phone. This is, you know, it's like glimpsing behind the curtains into the future of, you're going to arrive at an airport, you're going to take a test, 30 minutes later it's going to be on your phone, you get on the flight and you've got a COVID-free flight. So that's where you can see things are going, and we're just going to have to start. So it will be the same in the sense that you'll be traveling, it'll just be different because you'll be tested before you go. So it's going to be same but different. Hopefully, but the crystal ball is completely broken, so you know.
Who knows? There's a really great point that's being made by Mercedes on LinkedIn, and she agrees with you, well, she agrees with all of us, but particularly you, Jenny, and she's saying that we as people will be able to hopefully embrace more, you know, open to more opportunities as a result of this. And I think, you know, I definitely share that opinion. Okay, Natalie, what are your thoughts on change in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in line with Jenny and Amy as well. And I think people really, really are craving some positivity right now. So I was thinking of it more from a, you know, back to this topic of this, which is the social media kind of content point of view of keep making sure that for next year, no matter what happens, like making sure that the content stays positive, because that's essentially what people mean. So we want to hope for the best. But I'm the type of person that sort of like is expect the worst and hope for the best and plan for the worst. So in a way, I think with the marketing strategies that companies in this industry need to adopt, we need to sort of, we don't know, ultimately, we really don't know what's going to happen next year. So I think with especially the tips that we shared are an aim to sort of help people be more adaptable and be more flexible and be really quick at adapting their strategies, and no matter what happens next year. But I'd like to hope for the best. And I think people also want to hear the best. So definitely keeping everything positive, and hopefully it'll be a good year.
Nice points. Okay, so that just leaves me to say thank you very much to our panel, Jenny, Amy, Natalie, thank you so much. For those of you watching, if you enjoyed this content, there is an amazing infographic that captures all of the information that's been shared today, and we'll be posting that wherever you're watching this. So please look out for that, and please do share it if you think that someone can benefit from the information. A great way to help them out is to share that infographic, or even the video if you want. So thanks very much again to the panel. Thanks for Finn Partners, and thanks to Mint Twist, and thanks most of all to you for watching, and for those of you who sent in questions or comments. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.